Hi, Sifu Anthony here from Flowing Zen, and in this video I want to talk about whether or not Qigong counts as exercise. So by exercise, of course, I mean the usual use of the word. Everybody talks about, oh, I need to exercise more, and exercise is good for you, and exercise will help you live longer. So that's what I mean here. So the question is, does Qigong count as a form of exercise? Often I talk about Qigong and Tai Chi hand in hand because there's a lot of overlap between the two arts. And this video is really no exception, even though I'll use the word Qigong mostly. So it depends a lot what type of Tai Chi you're practicing. Certainly those people who are practicing Tai Chi as a martial art, the way that they practice, I think there's no question there that that's a form of exercise. It's practiced, like any other martial art. So yes, it counts as exercise. Let's put that type of Tai Chi off to the side. And this discussion will mostly be about gentle forms of Tai Chi and, of course, Qigong. So do these things count as exercise? So in case you didn't get the memo, exercise is good for you. The science on this subject is sort of bomb-proof. It's from every different direction. Just one of the number one things you can do to affect your health in a positive way and in a dramatic way is to exercise. And at this point in the 21st century, what that means for a lot of people is a whole lot of guilt. Despite the recommendations from healthcare practitioners, both Eastern and Western, mainstream and alternative, the truth is that a lot of Americans, and we'll say also a lot of the Western world, they just don't exercise enough. And let's be honest, they feel guilty about it. So if you're someone who feels like, yeah, I should probably exercise more, regardless of whether you're exercising, just clearly not enough, or you're doing a little bit, but you'd like to figure out how to do more, or even if you are an athlete, but you still want to figure out ways to maximize your exercise routine, let's say, then this video is for you. So it really doesn't matter where you are on the spectrum, whether you're somebody who just doesn't really exercise at all, or let's even say an athlete who exercises regularly. And this could be confusing, but I'll explain it. Regardless of where you are on this spectrum, whether you exercise 0 times a week or say 7 times a week, Qigong is going to count, and I'll explain why. And this will make a lot of you feel better on maybe a lot of different levels. So let's start with the athletes, even though this is probably not most of the people watching the video. So let's talk about people who are already exercising a lot. How would Qigong help them? How could Qigong, for example, help somebody who does CrossFit? They just do these really intense workouts, probably several times a week, or somebody who's a runner, like a real runner who runs, I don't know how many miles a week, 10 miles a week, let's say, or more. Some of you probably run a lot more than 10 miles a week. But how could Qigong help them? So maybe you've heard of something called HIIT, sometimes pronounced HIIT, which stands for high intensity interval training. And there's a lot of research to suggest that this is a very beneficial form of exercise where you work out intensively, like these sort of sprints. And that sprint can be a literal sprint, or it can be on a bike, or it can even be with weights where you're sort of pumping iron, but intensively, getting the heart rate up and going sort of explosively for, it can be 90 seconds, and then you do that a few times. And even just once a week of that can be very beneficial. Well, that's not what this video is about. But there's something that's maybe equally important that you may not have heard about and that is popping up more and more in the research, and that's called LISS. And that stands for low intensity steady state. So LISS, or low intensity steady state, is what? Well, I think the best way to explain it is to go back, 20,000 years, and our ancestors, hunter-gatherers, before we turned to farming and agriculture, we were walking a lot. So our ancestors were just wandering around. They were hunter-gatherers, so they were hunting, moving through forests and savannas and prairies, or they were gathering, they were moving around gathering. And I think that's the way to look at it, is that most of us, we just do not get nearly enough steps or activity, whatever it is. Even something like cleaning your house can count as this low intensity steady state. So that's not what our ancestors were doing, but it is similar. You're moving around slowly, you're not out of breath, you're not really sweating, and it can be moving around in this activity for an hour or 2 hours, however long it takes to clean the house. So that gives you a concept of low intensity steady state. So we're talking about athletes though. How do athletes make use of low intensity steady state? Most athletes should probably be doing more low intensity steady state and less of the other stuff. So athletes very often work out too much or too hard, and they neglect their recovery. So a common example is, let's say, bodybuilders. Bodybuilders who their goal is not just to get stronger, but to have big muscles. They want to look good. And recovery is a huge part of bodybuilding, and it's very often neglected. So it's not just about pumping iron, but it's about recovering and eating and sleeping and things like that. So it turns out that LISS, low intensity steady state, is really important for recovery almost no matter what type of athlete you are. So that's one of the main reasons why athletes can benefit from something like Qigong. Putting Qigong into their week will help them to recover faster, and they'll get more out of the whatever exercise they're already doing. And in fact, in many cases, and I've seen this happen, they can get away with doing less of their training schedule, their normal training schedule, and supplementing with Qigong. And in fact, even with Qigong in the mix, their overall, like say, hours or minutes per week is lower, and yet they're getting better results. That's because of this, let's call it a yin-yang balance of low intensity steady state and other more high intensity stuff. Now let's go to the other end of the spectrum, people who really don't exercise at all or not enough. So you stand to gain the most in terms of how much you can gain with sort of the amount of effort that you put in. Sure, if you were to exercise and you're to find a form of exercise, you would get a lot of health benefits from that, even if that wasn't Qigong. But here's the problem, most people struggle with that. That's why it's such a big problem. Doctors recommend it, and yet people don't do it. What's the problem there? Well, the problem is that a lot of exercise is just not enjoyable, and going from a place of zero exercise or very little exercise to a place of regular habitual exercise is incredibly difficult. So difficult that we need to be finding other methods. A lot of people need something else. You can't just shame these people into doing the exercise that they're supposed to be doing. We need another solution, and in my opinion, Qigong is a perfect solution for those people. I sometimes mention that Qigong is a gateway drug, and I mean this kind of as a joke, but it's also in a good way. It's really a gateway habit, or what we sometimes call a master key. And I've seen this countless times. I've taught courses entirely on this subject, that people, by implementing Qigong into their daily lives, even as little as 2 minutes of Qigong a day, and in the beginning it's not even daily because they don't have a daily habit, but even that small amount of Qigong acts as like a catalyst or a gateway drug or a master key that starts to unlock other things in their life. So for example, I've seen students, by just adding 2 minutes a day of Qigong, who were able to make better choices with food, or to start walking more. Some people forget that walking is absolutely a form of exercise, and it's one of the best things that you can do for yourself. So they add 2 minutes a day of Qigong, and then suddenly they start walking more. You can tell by the meters that they have in their iPhone or in their some sort of device. They tell me I'm walking more now that I'm doing Qigong. So if you view Qigong as a gateway habit, it's like double the benefit, because there's something about this art that helps us to build willpower and to feel better about ourselves and to do other things, which is the opposite of other forms of exercise which often shame us into doing less. Qigong inspires us to do more. On top of that, Qigong also has health benefits. So, okay, 2 minutes of Qigong a day is not a lot in terms of the exercise benefits, but then you're going to start doing more and more. You work up to 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes a day. The basic routine that I teach and what I encourage all students to start with is about 15 minutes a day in a specific routine that I call the 5-phase routine, but only 15 minutes, and then you can start to get some of these other benefits of Qigong itself as a self-healing art, but also, yes, we're moving low intensity steady state even the gentlest exercise, let's say something like pushing mountains, which just is very gentle, but just pushing out like this, how could that work? Well, yes, it counts as low intensity steady state. You're breathing, you're relaxed, your nervous system is relaxed, and you get the benefits of exercise from that session on top of all the other benefits of Qigong. So it's extremely cost effective for those of you who are not practicing at all. Simply by implementing Qigong and also Tai Chi into your day, although I would say that Qigong is easier, then you're going to get a cascade of benefits, and those benefits are what will help to get you to future benefits. So if you're here on the spectrum, you don't exercise very much, and you'd like to get somewhere in the middle, well, that's going to be step by step. We have to go gradually. And Qigong is a beautiful thing to help you get there, to help you work step by step to the middle here, to gradually change your identity from somebody who, yeah, I don't exercise enough, or I should really exercise more, to somebody who, yes, I exercise regularly. I exercise 5-6 days a week with Qigong, and then sometimes I do other things, and I have more and more energy, and I'm inspired to take control of my health, so I'm doing more and more with my life. So that is a beautiful thing, and that is one of the amazing things that I've seen over the years. With countless thousands of students, I have seen this pattern of Qigong as a gateway drug or a master key, where it unlocks all these other these beautiful effects, like a beautiful cascade of effects throughout their life. Now, another beautiful thing about Qigong is that it can be as gentle as we want. We can do it seated, we can do the gentlest exercise, it can be super, super gentle, so that's very helpful for a lot of people. But we can also turn the volume up gradually, as much as we want. Really, there are people who want more and more of a challenge, and I don't care how athletic you are, if you've never done Qigong or Tai Chi, and you want a challenge, I got something for you. I can give you exercises that are challenging, even just on a physical level. I can challenge your balance. I can challenge the endurance in your legs. For example, something like the horse stance. Stand there for half an hour and you'll be challenged. Stand there for 5 minutes correctly and you'll be challenged. So it's a beautiful thing because we can stick with this art of Qigong. We can start very, very gently if we want, and we can gradually turn the volume up if we want more and more of a challenge. Or people who already want a challenge, let's say they're physically fit and they're entering the world of Qigong, they want something challenging. For those people, Tai Chi might be a better choice just because it's harder in a lot of ways. It's more challenging. But just make sure you don't miss the internal aspects of Tai Chi. That's just very often what's missed in Tai Chi. It ends up just being a form where you just go plod through the form and this move and the next move. Don't miss the internal aspects of Tai Chi, and then you'll get this challenge, and you also get the benefits of the internal stuff. One last thing I want to mention is that Qigong, really regardless of where you are on the exercise spectrum, is an amazing art for mobility. Now, mobility is a popular term these days, and I think that's good because it kind of brings together a bunch of different things that Qigong works on. So I never know what words to use, because there are Qigong exercises, for example, that work on strength, flexibility, balance, and mobility. And in fact, a lot of Qigong exercises cover all those areas, and that's a beautiful thing. So you may be, let's say you're in great shape. You can run an 8-minute mile, and if you don't think an 8-minute mile is still good, well, that proves my point even more, that you're in great shape. Let's say you can run, you're in good shape, but you're sort of specialized with your type of fitness, and you may lack mobility. You may lack shoulder mobility. Runners, for example, are notorious. They don't have very good leg flexibility. So one way or another, you're going to lack mobility someplace, either in your joints or in your muscles. So Qigong helps with this, regardless of what type of sport you're doing or what type of activity you're doing. What about people at the other end of the spectrum, people who don't do very much? Absolutely. In fact, they stand to gain a lot because they're not doing that much already. And by doing something like, for example, this is called birthday candles, an exercise that really opens up the shoulders. If they've got shoulder limitations, a frozen shoulder, that exercise might not actually be good to start with for a frozen shoulder. We might start with other stuff. But by using Qigong, we're not only going to get some exercise, breathe, get the benefits of meditation and Qigong, but we're going to literally open up our mobility in a variety of ways, and that is a beautiful thing. The older I get, the more I appreciate mobility. Now, I'm not old by any means. A lot of my students are much older than me, but I definitely appreciate mobility more and more. These are things that I took for granted when I was younger. And it makes me appreciate an art like Qigong because, if you need more mobility, Qigong is going to help you get it. And I speak from experience there too, because I've lost mobility through injuries, and also I've had back trouble for years and years and years. So I've lost my mobility and then regained it through Qigong. And then on the other side of the spectrum is maintaining that mobility into middle age and old age and as far as you want to go. That protecting your mobility is a huge subject. And if you don't have something like Qigong in your repertoire yet, then wherever you are on the spectrum, whether you're not doing nearly enough exercise or doing plenty but want to maximize it, wherever you are on the spectrum, Qigong counts as exercise, and it's just one of these beautiful tools to have in your repertoire, in your toolbox for mobility. And we'll include, in the mobility umbrella, we'll include strength, especially leg strength, but also core strength, arm strength a little bit too, but of course we would need other things to really work on arm strength. But in the mobility category, we're including strength, flexibility, balance, and mobility itself, which is also part of it. So there you go. That's why Qigong absolutely counts as exercise. I've given you a bunch of explanations and reasons, and in fact, I've probably forgotten a few, but regardless of where you are, whether you exercise a lot or you hardly exercise at all, I hope you found something useful in this video, and I hope you see now that Qigong absolutely counts as exercise. And I would love to hear from you. Let me know in the comments what you thought, if you found this helpful, if I forgot anything. And I love hearing from my students and my prospective students. So, give me a comment below and let me know what you thought. Sifu Anthony, signing off.